always compete with the other for a survival, and those who are fit, they are capable of surviving, whereas those who are not will perish. Population can be understood based on the birth and the death rate of the individuals. What is population density? Population size is nothing but called as population density, and it is designated by the letter capital N. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to another session of chapter 13, second PUC Biology, that is Organisms and Population. I am Dr. Divya, Biology faculty, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Mysuru, Temple of Excellence. So in the previous session of this chapter, we had discussed about the adaptations of various organisms in different environment. Be it in regions where the temperature are sub-zero levels, that is the snow-laden regions, be it in the deserts where the temperature is more than 50 degrees centigrade, or be it in hydrothermal vents and the hot springs where the temperature is more than 100 degree centigrade. And we learned how these organisms actually have undergone various modifications in order to adapt to that particular environment. In today's session, we shall start studying about the population. So far we had studied about the organisms, that is the individual organisms and their adaptation. From today's session onwards, we shall concentrate on studying about the population. What are the different attributes of a population? To begin with, we shall start to understand what population is. So in nature, we rarely find individuals living isolated, right? So any individual, if he has to survive, be it a plant or an organism or something, they cannot live isolated because they'll always have to depend on another organism for one or the other reason. And not just that, the best example that we can take of is we human beings. We are social animals. We cannot lead an isolated individual life, right? And that group of people together in a particular area, we can call it as the population. So as we know, in nature, we rarely find isolated single individuals of any species wherein majority of them can only exist in groups, that is in a well-defined geographical area. So they share a same geographical area. There they undergo breeding and they give rise to new progenies, wherein again adding on to the increase of the population, and also the deaths will occur, adding on to the decreasing the population. So likewise, they share the same place, they compete for space, they compete for food, they compete for similar resources, and also they interbreed with each other, increasing the population. So all this has to occur in a particular population, and no individual can live isolated, and thus all these together constitute a population. So a group of individuals sharing a particular geographical area, competing for the similar resources found in that particular geographical area, and also interbreeding with each other, and also sharing space with each other. All these together contributes to they constitute a population. So when talking about population, we had come across the word called as interbreeding. So interbreeding always means it is a form of sexual reproduction. That is, if in a population, if two individuals has to breed with each other, it is a form of sexual reproduction. But can a population increase only because of interbreeding, which is a form of sexual reproduction? No. Population can also increase because of asexual reproduction, and therefore both sexual reproduction as well as asexual reproduction contribute to the increase in a population. And these increase in the population, or the reason for the increase in the population, that is sexual reproduction as well as asexual reproduction, both are very important for various ecological studies. So why it is important? Because if we understand the growth of the population, then we can understand what is that factors in the ecology that is actually contributing to the growth of this particular population. So when we use the word population, it is nothing but a group of individuals in a particular geographical area or a habitat or wherever. So let's consider taking the examples of few of the animals wherein we can easily understand what exactly a population means. So for example, a group of cormorants in a wetland. So cormorants are usually the birds which are found on the banks of the rivers and all that. So in that they usually tend to be in groups. So that is also called as a population of cormorants in that particular wetland. So next, talking about the rats. So in an abandoned building you can see population of rats. So in that particular building, what is the population of rats? It is nothing but a group of rats living in that particular abandoned dwelling. Likewise, in the forest also, teak wood in trees in a forest tract. So teak wood trees are actually brought up by humans, right? The humans would have planted those trees in the forest tract. We need not consider population by counting the whole population in a geographical area. Say for example, population on the forest tract, population of the teak wood tree growing on the forest tract, even that is also considered as a population. Next is the bacteria in a culture plate. So the bacteria in a culture plate can also be considered as a population. So here the one thing that we have to notice is everywhere we can count the number of individuals. So by looking at this, I can say in this particular wetland there are so many number of cormorants. In this abandoned building there are so many number of rats, and on the forest tract there are so many number of trees. Likewise, the lotus plants in a pond, I can also count the number of lotus plants in a pond, right? But when it comes to bacteria in a culture plate, we cannot give an exact number. Like the number of bacteria in a culture plate cannot be counted. So that is when the population can also be measured based on the growth rate. How much growth has occurred. Based on that also the population can be counted. The bacteria growing in the culture plate is one such example. So these are the different examples that we can take in order to understand about population. So next, let us study what are the different attributes that we can give in order to consider the individual and a population. Individual means only one tree standing in a desert. It is an individual tree. Number of trees in a desert, that will become population of trees. So what are the different attributes that we can give in order to consider that particular organism as an individual organism or as a population of that particular region? So here there are various attributes that we can consider. The first thing is population can be understood based on the birth and the death rate of the individual. So birth rates will add on to the population, death rates will decrease the population. So an individual may have births and deaths. So an individual organism, say for example that particular deer, one single individual deer in a forest, it can be considered that individual deer will give birth, the individual deer will die, right? So an individual may have birth and deaths, but a population has birth rates and death rates. Why? There is a difference. So when you're talking about an individual, you can use the term birth and death. Birth of that particular individual. The individual has given birth. The individual has died. Birth and death. But when talking about a population, we cannot use the term birth and death. Why? Because we're talking about a group of individuals in that particular population, right? A group. So we'll calculate altogether how many births have occurred. That is the birth rate we need to calculate. Altogether how many deaths have occurred. So population, in order to understand how much decline in the population has occurred and how much increase in the population has occurred. And these rates in a population are usually considered as per capita birth and deaths. So per capita births and death means within a given period of time. So within a given period of time, say for example, the census is conducted every year. So it is somewhere around 365 days or 12 months. So when we say in 12 months, that is per capita 12 months means per capita 12 months, how much the birth rate has increased in that particular population, how much death has occurred in that particular population. So it is usually referred to as per capita births and per capita deaths, and the rates hence expressed are the change in numbers. So of course here the change in numbers will occur. If birth has occurred in the population, then increase, right? And if deaths has occurred, decrease. And one more thing we need to consider, the population always gets balanced, because if the number of deaths occurring are one and the same, the population, they will not be increase or decrease, the population will be throughout the same, it will be same. So here the rates hence expressed are change in numbers. So whether the number of individuals in that population have increased because of birth, or number of individuals in the population have decreased because of the birth, and these are counted with respect to the members of the population. So here we need to understand two things under this. When you're talking about an individual, you can use it as the birth and the death. But when we're talking about a group or a population, we need to use the term as birth rate and death rate, and it can always be referred to as per capita birth and per capita death, and these are usually expressed in the terms of numbers. So if it is birth, the number would have increased. If it is death, the number would have decreased. So we can count it here. So this is about one of the attributes of population and individual, that is birth rates and the death rates. So we'll take an example here to make you better understand. So in a pond, there were 20 lotus plants. So last year in 2018, how many lotus plants were there? For example, there were 20 lotus plants in a pond. 2018, there was 20 lotus plants in a pond, and through reproduction, 8 new plants got added. How many? Now here it is easy for us, right? We can count. Last year it was 20. Next year you go, another 8 will be there. When you're counting, extra 8 would have been added. It means the reproduction has occurred wherein 8 new plants have been produced in that particular pond or the population, right? So here 20 plus 8. So here the new plants are added, taking the current population. How much will be the current population? It is totally 28. That is in 2019. So per capita birth rate we are measuring here. Why per capita? We are taking 1 year's data. So in 1 year, from 2018 to 2019, how many plants got added to that population? 8. So totally in 2019, the population is 28. So here, last year through reproduction, 8 new plants are added, taking the current population to 28. So this is birth of the individuals. How many individuals got added? 8 individuals got added. So if you're talking about individuals, I can call it as 8. 8 individuals, totally 28 individuals. That is for individual. But when I'm talking about the population, can I call it as 28? No, because here we always need to take the counting in the form of the birth rate. So when talking about the birth rates, what we have to do is, there was 20 number of individuals last year, to which 8 number of individuals got added, and therefore the birth rate is 0.4. So how much increase in the birth rate? 0.4. How much increase in the birth? 28. How much increase in the birth rate? Because I'm talking about the population here, it is 0.4. So that is how it is calculated. So we calculate the birth rate as age divided by 20, which is equal to 0.4 offsprings were added to the pond in 2019. The birth rate increased by 0.4. That is how we can say it. That is annual birth rate increased by 0.4. Say for example, there is one more here. This was about birth rate. Now we'll talk about the death rate. So if 4 individuals in a laboratory population, how many? 4 individuals. Population of 40 fruit flies died. So how many were the fruit flies? There were 40 fruit flies, out of which how many died? It was 4. So I'm minusing here, because 4 got reduced because death occurred. So how much here? So here it is 36. So how much individuals of fruit flies are there? 36. But here we are talking about the death rate, wherein we are looking into the population. So if it is the population, it will be 4 by 40. So it will be as such here. I'll just write it here. It will be 4 by 40, which will be equal to 0.1. So 0.1 is the death rate of the population. How many individuals are present? It is 36 individuals. 4 deaths have occurred, therefore total population will be 36. But death rate is 0.1. So this is the difference between the birth rate and the death rate when we are considering a population. And when we consider an individual, it is something, a simple calculation. For the death rate, you can subtract. For the birth rate, you can add it. So that is how it is calculated. So this is about the examples for birth rate and the death rate. So next, talking about one more attribute, that is sex ratio. So far we discussed about the number of individuals in a population, how to differentiate between the birth and the death, and how to differentiate between the death rate and the birth rate. So we understood. So next, one more attribute is the sex ratio. So in that population, how many males are there? How many females are there? That also should be written. So now we might have a question, why should we count how many males are there, how many females are there? Is it necessary? Yes, it is necessary, because we know that these male and females are the ones which later on, especially the females, will reproduce and add on to the population. So to know or to get an idea or statistical idea exactly how much individuals might increase in that particular population, to understand, we need to know the sex ratio here. So an individual can either be a male or a female. So when we talk about an individual, so looking at the person, you will say she is a female, he is a male, right? But in a population, we need to get a count. How many males are there? How many females are there? So that is called as sex ratio. When talking about population, we don't use the term male and female as in when we talk about an individual. In population, we use the term sex ratio. So say for example, 60% of the population, it will be 60:40. Meaning here 60% of the population are female and rest 40% is male. In a population, around 60% are female and 40% are male. So that is how we differentiate between the individual and that of a population. So next, talking about the age. So age is also one of the important attributes, because age will actually define the well-being of a country. How the country can progress very fast, for that the age of the population also matters. Because if youngsters are there, it is said that the country's economy will increase, because a lot of people who are capable of working will be there in the population. So that is why calculating the age in a population is also very, very important. Therefore, age is also one of the important attributes of an individual as well as the population. So at a population at any given time is composed of individuals of different ages. That is true, right? So here we consider the different age of the individual in that particular population. So how many individuals are of the old age? How many are of the adolescent age? How many are still of the infant age likewise? So use three terms to describe the age of a population, that is post-reproductive. Post-reproductive means those who have passed their reproductive age, that is above 50. So they are post-reproductive age. Next is reproductive age, those who are capable of giving birth. That will be the reproductive age. And pre-reproductive age is the children. So here we shall discuss about this using the various graphical representations. So a population at a given time is composed of individuals of different ages, that is post-reproductive age, reproductive age and pre-reproductive age. And if the age distribution, that is percent of individual of a given age or age group, is plotted for the population, the resulting structure is called as age pyramid. The age of the population is usually represented by age pyramid. So this is age pyramid. So here for human population, the age pyramids generally show age distribution of, we can find out the age distribution of male as well as the females in this particular diagram. And the shape of the pyramid reflects the growth status of the population. That is true, because you can see here what is the growth state of the population, whether it is expanding, whether it is stable or whether it is declining. How can we say that? If the post-reproductive individuals in the population are more and the reproductive and the pre-reproductive are very less, then the population is declining. So we'll talk about it one by one. So we can understand whether it is growing, whether it is stable, or whether it is declining. So here you can see they have indicated this as post-reproductive and the one with the blue color as reproductive and the yellow as pre-reproductive. So you can see here the post-reproductive is less. The number of individuals in post-reproductive, so much it is very less. And the number of individuals of the reproductive age is more when compared to that of the post-reproductive, and the number of individuals who will be entering into the reproductive age later on, that is the pre-reproductive individuals, are also more here. So therefore the population is expanding. Because why will it expand? Because those of the reproductive age will give rise to new generations or new individuals. So therefore the population will be expanding. On the other hand, here if you see a stable population, here post-reproductive age, it is quite less. It is less, and also only a slight increase in the reproductive age individuals when compared to that of the post-reproductive, and also here the post-reproductive and the reproductive age individuals are almost of the same level or same numbers. So therefore the population is stable. So next, when talking about this particular age pyramid, you can see the pre-reproductive individuals are very less, the reproductive individuals are more, but these reproductive individuals will later on enter into the post-reproductive individuals, right? And see the pre-reproductive, the number of pre-reproductive individuals entering into the reproductive stage is very, very less. And also the post-reproductive individuals are less. Here the population is declining because the pre-reproductive individuals are very, very less in that population. So that is how, based on age pyramid, by looking at the age pyramids, we can easily understand whether the population is growing or expanding, whether it is stable or whether it is declining. So this was about the age, which is one of the attributes of the population. What are the reasons that actually occur or which results in variation in the population? So here one main reason is competition with another species. That is true. We always compete with the other for a survival, and those who are fit, they are capable of surviving, whereas those who are not will perish. So every day an organism tends to perish because of this particular competition. And the impact of predators. So predators, their main food is other organisms. So they hunt down and they feed on other organisms. So when we talk about predators, it need not necessarily be that a cheetah hunting on a deer. Anything can be a predator. So a disease to a plant, an insect attacking a plant. So the insect here is a predator to the plant. So any of the examples we can take. So the impact of predators will actually bring a decline in the or variation in the population. Next is the effect of pesticide application. So say for example, in a crop field, there are about thousands together of locusts. Now locusts are detrimental to the crops and in turn incurs a heavy economic loss to the farmers. But in spite of that, locust is a species. It has the right to live and it forms a population, so thousands of individuals. And one insecticide spray is sprayed onto that particular field, the complete locust population will come down or it will get perished. So therefore, the effect of pesticide also brings down the population or brings the variation in the population. So here there are some examples that we can take. So the population can be, the variations can be as low as less than 10. Siberian cranes at Bharatpur wetlands, in every year their population keeps on declining. Why? It is because of human intervention, habitat loss and fragmentation is occurring, which is causing a threat to the migratory birds. So that is why every year in Bharatpur National Park, which is a bird sanctuary, there migratory birds that are coming there, actually the population is decreasing. Or say for example, even we can say or go into or take the example of the Chlamydomonas, which grows to millions in a pond. Say for example, in a population there are 10 individuals, and in that if 2 individuals get reduced from the population also, it is considered as a decline in the population. Or there are millions of individuals, and from that also if thousands together of individuals perish and the population comes down, then also it is considered as a decline in the population. So number is not a matter here. How much individuals have declined in that particular population is the one which decides whether the population is increasing or whether it is decreasing. So we have taken one more example, that is Chlamydomonas. So you can see here Chlamydomonas. These are the Chlamydomonas species which are growing in the pond water. So there are millions of Chlamydomonas species which are growing, and even a slight decline in the population is also considered as a reduction in the population, or a variation in the population has occurred. So these are different reasons for variation: competition between the species, then the impact of the predators, and the effect of the use of pesticide. So all these are the important reasons why a variation in the population is occurring. So next, talking about the size. So the size of the population. So population size is technically called as population density. So when we say what is the density of population in that particular area or geographical location, so the size of the population is always called as population density. So what is population density? Population size is nothing but called as population density, and it is designated by the letter capital N. So there are various ways how we can measure the population density or the population of a particular geographical area. One is by counting the total number. So I told you, number of trees in that particular area, number of individuals or humans in that particular area, we can count. But there are some organisms, say for example, the bacteria growing in a petri plate. That is very difficult to count, and that is when we use either we go in for the percent cover, how much percentage the bacteria has covered the particular area. By calculating that, or the biomass, by calculating the biomass, we find out the size of the population. So population size can be measured by the total number of individuals in that particular population, or the growth rate, or the percent cover or biomass in that particular population. So here, to understand about each of these, we shall study them individually by taking examples. So first, one of the important measurement of population is by counting the number of individuals in a population, that is total number. So it is generally the most appropriate way of counting the number of individuals in a population. So sometimes it is very difficult, as I told you, not always we can depend on counting the number of individuals. Sometimes there might be a situation wherein, say for example, I told you the population of bacteria on a culture plate, it is very, very difficult to count. Or Chlamydomonas in a pond, it is difficult to count. So at that time, we can go in for the biomass, or we can go in for the percent area that it has covered. At present, talking about the total number of the population, which is one of the best measures to count the individuals in a population, we shall understand by taking the example of a field. Say for example, in a field, there are 200 carrot grass. So carrot grass is nothing but Parthenium hysterophorus. It is a weed. In a field, there are 200 carrot grass, that is Parthenium plant, but only one single huge banyan tree with a large canopy. So banyan tree, we know that one banyan tree itself, it will spread by putting its prop root to the ground, right? And wherever the prop root touches the ground, there itself it will form a new stem, and the roots will start to develop, and that new stem will be formed, and it will form into a new tree. So now when we look, we feel that it is an individual tree standing there, but the area it has covered will be more. Now, but how many Parthenium is there? 200. How many banyan tree? Only one. But the banyan tree, the area it has covered is more than that of the Parthenium. Now, can you simply say counting the individuals is the best option for understanding the population of a community? No, right? Because here we have to give importance to both the banyan tree as well as the carrot grass. Carrot grass might be more in number, but the area occupied by the banyan tree is more than that of the carrot grass growing in that particular field. We have to consider the area as well as the number of individuals. Both should be given importance while talking about a population in a particular geographical area. So this is one of the best example. Next is, so when the population is huge, so I told you there are sometimes we cannot depend on counting the number of individuals. The population might be too huge, it might be clumpy, not possible for us to separate and count the individuals, and it might be like quite a lot of time consuming. So in such cases, instead of going for the total number of population, we need to take in the percent cover or biomass. The best example, as I told you, is bacteria culture in a petri dish. So bacteria culture in a petri dish, of course, this is one colony of bacteria. Can you count the number of individuals in this colony? It is not possible. It is very difficult, right? Say for example, this bacteria, say this is a colony. This colony has grown and it has become so big. So you can count the area or the diameter of increase in the growth. So like that we can count the percent growth or the biomass of that particular colony of the bacteria. That is why both the counting of the total number of individuals as well as counting the area it has covered or the biomass is very, very important to understand the size of a population. So say for example, for certain ecological investigations, there is no need to know the absolute population density. Best example, it is not necessary to understand the exact population density. Can we count the number of fishes in the ocean? It's not possible, right? Or a number of fishes. Say for example, there are these salmon fishes. So how many salmon fishes are there? Is it possible to count? It's very difficult. At that time, what do they do exactly? But still, people give numbers that so many population of this particular species fish is there in that particular river or ocean or any of the water body. How exactly is this done? So here what they do is, they will count the number of fish caught per trap. So say for example, in a particular area, they would have put 10 fish traps. So that in that 10 fish trap, how many fishes have been caught, that number they will assign for the population of fishes of that particular species. That they will consider as a measure of total population density in that particular lake. They might be more than that, but they will not think about it. It's just to get a value. So, to understand whether it is declining or increasing, because next time if the population of fish is very less, then the number of individual fishes that have been caught in the cage will be very less. So, that is how they will understand. So, therefore, here sometimes to count a population, understanding the exact total number is not needed. Just counting the number of individuals in one catch, if you find, then you can understand the total number of that particular fishes in that particular population. And also, sometimes the estimation of the population size is done indirectly. Say for example, it can also be done indirectly, wherein the count can be done without actually seeing the animal. At least in the case of fishes, which I had explained earlier, they had counted the number of fishes that were caught in the traps. But in this particular case, without seeing them itself, we can count the number of individuals in that particular population. Say for example, in a national park, say in a tiger reserve, how many number of tigers are there? They counted just by counting the pug marks of the tiger. So by counting the pug marks of the tiger, they'll just put an estimate of, okay, maybe so many tiger is there in that particular forest. Or also they will go in for the fecal matter, either the pug mark or the fecal pellets. So wherever the tiger has put the fecal pellets, looking into the texture of the fecals and all that, they will try to count the number of individuals of tigers in that particular tiger reserve population. So that is how they will collect. So this is how by different means a population can be calculated. One is by counting the exact number. Another one is by measuring the area it has covered or the biomass. And also sometimes by just looking into the number of animals that have been caught in a trap, By that also they will give the estimate of that particular population or size of that particular population. Not just that, sometimes they don't even look into the animal, just by looking into the evidences left over by the animal, such as the fecal matter, the pug mark and all that, the number of individuals in the population is calculated. So this was about today's session, wherein we understood about how are the different ways a population can be calculated and what are the different attributes for an individual and a population, all that we understood. So in the next coming session, we shall discuss about the density of the population. So in population density is nothing but the size of the population is called as the density of the population. So it can be explained using various growth models such as exponential growth and logistic growth. So how the density of a population is measured by using two growth models, we shall see in the next coming session. So we shall meet in the coming session. Thank you.